We're going to check out some of the Broncos' top draft targets for their biggest positions of need. And before we get into that, help us grow the channel and help us reach our next milestone before the NFL draft kicks off. We have 13,299 subs. At least pick up one sub from today's video so I can have a nice even 13,300. But help us reach our next milestone, and in return, get free Broncos YouTube content. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with my top 25 draft targets for Denver at their biggest positions of need. Now, quick disclaimer, it's a bit tough to do these types of videos when the Broncos don't pick until 67. You're not quite sure who's even going to be there at that point. So I did my best to project which guys have no chance of even falling to them. So if I don't include them in my draft targets, it's likely because I think they'll go well before 67. So with that being said, let's look at the biggest needs for Denver in order, starting with what I believe is cornerback, because you have Pat Surtain, and then you got Damari Mathis, and then you got nothing. And you got to add something, and you got to add some depth at corner. So here are some third-round cornerback draft targets for the Broncos. Julius Juju Brents from Kansas State, Cam Smith from South Carolina, Clark Phillips out of Utah, Tyrique Stevenson from Miami, and then Darius Rush, also from Columbia, South Carolina. My number one guy, I think it's going to be Julius Brents, actually. He has been mocked to go anywhere from late first to mid-third round, so no one's got a good beat on where the K-State Wildcat will land. He's a 6'2", 198-pound corner, a 2-year starter in Manhattan after transferring from Iowa City. He has great size, average speed, off and on ball skills. He led the team in interceptions and pass breakups last season. Some plays he's got a great eye for the football, nose for the football. Other plays he gets turned around a little bit. I am drafting him mostly because he is 6'2". You just don't find that type of size for cornerbacks all that often. So if you can find a good coach to figure out the rest, but 6'2" corners in day 2, they don't come around very often. Now, here are the stats for the other players we looked at. Cam Smith and Darius Rush from South Carolina, two lengthier ball hawk corners, right? 2 interceptions for Rush, one pick, for Cam Smith. Tyrique Stevenson, he is a nasty physical corner. He is going to make life miserable for you at the point of attack. He's just in the 5-foot club, which isn't all that uncommon for cornerbacks anyway. Clark Phillips, he is a interception machine, right? 6 picks and 6 pass breakups last season in Salt Lake City. He is one of the best ball hawk corners in this draft class. Just doesn't wow you with his athleticism, his overall speed, or his height, or anything like that. So comment down below which position you think the Broncos should draft first. We'd love to hear from everyone watching right now what you think they should target first with that 67th overall pick in the draft. Moving on to our second position of need, I'm going to go edge rusher now. You can make arguments to swap corner and edge rusher, and you won't have a big grievance for me, but I do believe edge rusher gets a slight knock behind corner because you did sign Randy Gregory to a big contract last year. You did draft Baron Browning in the 3rd round. You did trade for Jacob Martin. You did not cut him this season, off season. So I think there is a decent level. And there's Nick Bonito, your first pick in last year's draft. So I can see decent arguments for why Denver should maybe want to see how those guys pan out before rushing to have a first pick in the draft be an edge rusher. Now, here are my 3rd-round edge draft targets for Denver. Derick Hall, if he's there, awesome. Might not be there, though. Isaiah Foskey and Zach Harrison are 2 great explosive pass rushers. Tuli Tuipulotu is extremely productive for USC, and he's a physical beast of nature, along with YaYa Diaby out of Louisville. Now, Derick Hall, I've seen him go early 1st round, maybe even KC to round out the draft, all the way to early 3rd round, right near pick 67. He's an explosive pass rusher, 6'3", 254 pounds, a 2-year starter for the Tigers. He's average against the run. That's probably why he's not, locked in as a first or early second round pick, but don't be shocked if he goes there because of his pass rushing traits. Now, the Auburn Tiger last season, 11.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Very productive. He had no issue locating and bringing down the quarterback a season ago. Now, before we get to the rest of my draft targets for Denver, today's Broncos breakdown is sponsored by ZBiotics. Let's face it, after you guys hit me with a bunch of super chats during our watch parties, I do not always bounce back well the next day. Now, that is until I found ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Now, here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. Drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol and drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give ZBiotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're ever unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use the code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring today's video. Looking at the other edge rushers that the Denver Broncos could find in round 3, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame is one sneaky productive guy for the Fighting Irish. 14 tackles for loss and 11 sacks. As for Zach Harrison, 8 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks. If we're not getting Derick Hall, I lean towards Foskey or Tuipulotu out of USC. Those are my next 2 guys. But honestly, any of these 4 guys in round 3, I think would be a good pick for the Broncos. Now, here at Chat Sports, we go live for all 3 days of the NFL Draft. So come hang out with yours truly over on our main channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv, where we break down each and every single pick of the NFL Draft. On to our third biggest need for the Broncos. I'm going to go center now. They have done a ton of work on the offensive line, investing a ton of money with Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey. Center is just the last piece of the puzzle Denver needs to fill out. Now, there are not 5 centers in this draft class who could go in round 3. There's just not that many centers in the draft class to begin with, right? So here are my top 5 center draft targets for days 2 and 3 of the draft. John Michael Schmitz and Joe Tippmann, those are your top 2 centers in this draft. Long shot that they're even there at pick 67. That would likely require a trade up. Now, Ricky Stromberg, he's going to go somewhere in round 3, I think. Luke Wypler from Ohio State and Juice Scruggs, also from the Big Ten, those are going to be your early day 3 centers most likely. Now, Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas, he is perfect for Denver in round 3. 6'3", 306 pounds. He was a 4-year starter at Arkansas. Last year, he made the All-SEC first team. He is, as I put it, a bear amongst squirrels when you watch the tape. He is just that good at moving large human beings for a living. He is a nasty run-blocking center who holds his own in pass protection as well. I know Cushenberry was a 3rd-round pick, but I love Ricky Stromberg coming out of Arkansas. He would be an ideal draft for Denver, would feature going corner and edge in round 3 and praying that Stromberg is there in round 4. Checking all 3 of your biggest needs in order of the draft and going best player available, hopefully, at those spots as well. That would garnish a pretty good draft grade for the Broncos without even having a 1st or 2nd round pick. That is the goal. That is the dream. You pick 67 and 68. So it doesn't really matter if you go corner, edge, edge, corner at those two spots. But getting the top two players from those two position groups remaining, and then getting Stromberg hopefully in round 4, you're going to feel like you killed the draft, George and Sean Payton. Moving on to our next position of need here, I will go running back now at number 4. It is very difficult to actually pin down how the Broncos are viewing the running back class here, because I don't know how badly they need a running back, right? I don't know when Javonte Williams is returning. No one really knows when he is. And I think the Broncos might err on the side of caution. Here are some third-round running back draft targets to watch for. Zach Charbonnet and Devon Achane, they're probably going to be round 2, but running backs are always tough to really nail down in drafts, so they easily could be there in round 3. Tyjae Spears, Tank Bigsby, and Zach Evans, those are guys that could be there anywhere from rounds 3 to round 4, so we'll lump them in as well. Now, here are some stats to look at. Tank Bigsby from Auburn over the last 2 seasons, he was a 2-year starter for the Tigers, averaging over 5 yards a carry a season ago, 970 rushing yards. Then there's Zach Evans, who I'm also going to toss in there. Denver met with both of these players in their top 30 pre-draft visits. So I don't know if the Broncos are doing this homework because they love these guys, or if because they love other running backs more and they don't even feel the need to waste a visit on them. They're already sold. They want to do some homework on some other players. I think you can correlate Denver's belief in Javonte Williams as the future back as this team based on how early they draft a running back. If the Broncos go running back at 67 or 68, to me, that's going to signal they don't really think Javonte Williams is going to play much this season. And even when he comes back, he'll be towards the end of his contract, and they might be looking to go a different direction and not give him a second contract when they really haven't seen much to deserve it, unfortunately, because of a major knee injury. So play GM for me. Which round should the Broncos draft a running back in? Do you want to see them draft one in the 3rd round, use one of their top 2 of 5 picks? Or do you want to see them wait later in the draft and roll with Samaje Perine and hope that Javonte can come back mid-season and not look like he's all that far behind? We move on to our 5th and final biggest need for Denver here. I'm going to go offensive tackle. Now, this last spot, you can make a bunch of arguments for a bunch of different positions, and I really won't disagree all that hard. But offensive tackle, I think, is a sneaky one to watch for. Here are some 3rd-round offensive tackle draft targets for the Broncos. You got Dawand Jones, who is probably going to go in round 2, but hey, round 67 is not that far off. Blake Freeland, speaking of a potential new Mormon left tackle, this could be one to watch for. Tyler Steen has been sort of murmured as the draft sleeper amongst tackles, so this could be a fun pick for Denver. Carter Ward and Nick Saldiveri from Old Dominion round out my list here. Now, if I had to zero in on one guy, Blake Freeland from BYU is a very intriguing prospect. He's 6'7", 302 pounds, a 4-year starter at BYU, so loads of experience, 26 career starts at left tackle and 15 at right tackle. And I'm also going to bring up a potential replacement for Garrett Bowles after 2023. Garrett Bowles is coming back from a fractured leg, ladies and gentlemen. He's probably going to start training camp on the PUP list, and I don't think he'll be ready to go by week 1. So Denver could get a shot at finding a week 1, week 2, week 3, or however long they need a left tackle for replacement, but they also might be thinking long-term here. Unfortunately, Garrett Bowles has not looked like the very expensive cornerstone left tackle that he is, in my opinion. 2024 is the last year of his contract. Just 2 years remaining. In 2024, he has a $20 million cap hit and only a $4 million dead cap hit. So if Denver wants to just not only move on because they think they can do better, but also save a lot of money, well, Garrett Bowles could be out after this season, so this could help kickstart finding your new left tackle for years to come. If you made it to the end of today's video, go down to the comment section, type me down below. That way I know who the real ones are that don't tap out halfway through the video, but rock it with me all the way to the end.